It was early in the morning one day 6 years ago, and my wife and 2 boys were still asleep. I, however, was wide awake, lying prostrate on the living room floor. This was not a relaxed prostrate, a slow, stretchy, meditative, welcoming of a new day kind of prostrate. This was a holy crap, I'm scared out of my mind, all I can do is lay here kind of prostrate. Super fun. This is Andrew Petty is Dying, where we tap into the power of our mortality to become the people we were made to be and live the lives we were made to live. I'm your host, Andrew Petty, and I'm dying. I hate to say it, but so are you. Over the previous few years, it had become unavoidably clear that I needed to change professionally, and we needed to change as a family too. To figure out what kind of change, we had worked an insightful and highly structured process with a coach, my first experience with a coaching partnership. We'd weighed pros and cons, clearly envisioned a better, more desirable, more satisfying life, taken a weekend retreat as a couple and a week-long retreat with my coach and his wife, made low-cost probes into various options, gained useful insight through assessments, and gotten counsel from family and friends. We'd invested a lot of time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears into the process, and eventually it had yielded the clarity we sought about the kind of changes we wanted to make. And yet here I was, prostrate on the living room floor, scared to death to pull the trigger on a decision. Evidently, just knowing what kind of changes we wanted to make wasn't enough. Then, something popped to mind that my wife and I were in the habit of telling our boys. If you're scared, it's a good chance to practice being brave. We understood that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to act in spite of fear, and it's something that we can cultivate with practice. I understood this, but here I was face to face with what it really felt like, and I was absolutely terrified. In that moment, I knew that the only work left undone was to walk my own talk. No amount of preparation, insight, diligence, as useful as those things are, would ever take the place of that conscious, deliberate choice to be brave. It was the final thing standing between me and the future that I wanted, the one thing that would empower me to become a creator of my own destiny instead of remaining a passive dreamer. And in that moment, I did choose to be brave. I didn't have to, of course. We always have a choice. We can advance or we can retreat, but we shouldn't be deceived. There's no such thing as staying where we are. Perhaps the realization that I would be a hypocrite of the highest order if I didn't do what I so often exhorted my boys to do played into it. Certainly, the pain of staying where I was had become intolerable. No sooner had I made that choice than a new and more welcome presence also appeared alongside fear: resolve. I was still aware of the fear. The many unknowns about how things would play out didn't magically go away. But my choice to be brave made room for resolve as a counterbalancing force to fear. The mental and emotional change within me was instantaneous and exhilarating. When my wife entered the room a few minutes later, the first words out of my mouth were, "Let's go." That's an example from my life. But what about you? In what areas of your life does fear hold you back, or push you down, or get the best of you? What difference would it make if you began to be the boss of that fear rather than it being the boss of you? Let's be honest. Life is full of stuff that's legitimately scary. There's simply no changing that fact. Dangers abound even on the best of days. Big leaps and new adventures bring real risks. This episode is airing in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. The fear and uncertainty is palpable and global, and no one knows how it will all play out. So in a world full of fear-inducing realities, here's the big idea that I want you to wrestle with. The way to master fear is not to become less fearful. The way to master fear is to become more brave. None of us would expect to get physically stronger simply by telling our weakness to go away. Nor would we expect to get stronger just by hanging around a bunch of weights, or envisioning ourselves as stronger, or meditating about bigger muscles, as useful as envisioning and meditating are in their own ways. We know that getting physically stronger requires putting in the consistent work to build more muscle, and that's hard work. But gradually, you do get stronger. And weight that was once impossible to lift becomes your new normal. The same is true in mastering fear. We have to put in the work to build bigger bravery muscles so we can throw fear around more easily in the weight room of life. On this podcast, we tap into the power of our mortality to become the people we were made to be and live the lives we were made to live. And perhaps nowhere in life is our mortality a more powerful ally than in our battle against fear. It is to bravery building what steroids is to bodybuilding, except for the whole illegal and unhealthy part. When fear comes knocking, remind yourself that the clock of life is ticking, and tell fear to step aside as you charge ahead anyway. In the story I shared from my own life, the defining moment came when I stopped just laying on the bench beneath the bar and decided to lift the weight. That was the critical first step, the necessary first step, that made possible all the others that followed. The road since then has been filled with ups and downs, highs and lows, steps forward and steps backward. Overall, though, the trajectory has been forward and upward. Will Smith has said the best things in life are on the other side of fear. I totally agree. If you're scared, practice being brave and start today. Remember, you are going to die, but you're not dead yet. So get after it. If bravery building was a sport, would you be an amateur or a professional? Share your response in the comments on this episode's post on Facebook @AndrewPettyCoach. My purpose as a coach is to help you deploy your unique purpose in the world. Connect with me on Facebook or email me at andrew@digdeepwinbig.com. I'm so glad you tuned in today. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Andrew Petty is Dying.